Good day everyone, Siu here again with my second controller review, this time featuring the newly refreshed ZD Super Legend Excellence 8K, which in Mandarin it's 超级传奇卓越. 卓越 means excellent, which is like a refresh of their previous earlier model, the Super Legend. So this is what we call the Ultimate Legend's little sibling because it is smaller in size, but have pretty much the same internals and performance as the Ultimate Legend that all of you should know by now. And I've actually been waiting for the release of this specific colorway ever since the boss of ZD, 杰老板, he teased it in a live stream back in September of last year. And as I feel like the amount of white or gray or black controllers being released at that point in time was just too much. So yes, I have it. And here it is. This is the manly pink Super Legend Excellence. I mean, the other two colorways that come with the Super Legend Excellence are also pretty solid, which are the black and white variants. But in my opinion, I think having some color for the controller is always a nice sight to see. And in this video, I will run through some of the specs and offerings that this Super Legend has to offer compared to its bigger brother, literally, the ZD Ultimate Legend that I've been using since August of last year. So yeah. And I would like to thank ZD for sending this controller, the Super Legend, in exchange for an unbiased user review. So all of the opinions in this video are honest from my end, and ZD doesn't have a say in them. 感谢杰老板和木冷哥给我个机会做个超传卓越的评测。And also for your information, the Super Legend Excellence goes for about $70 if you were to get it from ZD Gaming's website or even their AliExpress page. Or if you're based in Asia, you can sneak one for about 299 yuan, or a bit lower depending on the amount of vouchers platforms like Taobao before their delivery fees. The controller comes with itself, and then you will also get a USB-A to USB-C cable. This isn't braided. And then you get a set of ABXY buttons for your switch layout, and then you get a dongle for your 2.4 gigahertz connection, your ZD Discord invite, and then you also get a anime card, but this one technically just shows you the manufacturing date of your Super Legend Excellence, and then this QR code actually leads you to the user manual, but it's in Mandarin, so I'll just link the English version down in the description somewhere for ease of reference when you get your controller. And yeah, that's basically it. So these are all the only things that come with the controller, and there's nothing else. There's no printed user manual, nor does it come with those protective rings for your joysticks. It's truly a cost-saving experience. But I guess the cardboard box that comes holding the controller inside is solid enough so that the joysticks don't move during transportation. So it's pretty much all good here. We'll just start off really quickly, and I'll just show you guys a latency test from GamepadLA website, verified from the man himself. And we can see here that the stick latency goes down to as low as 0.57 milliseconds. Nice. The button latency is also pretty nice, but our neighbors are doing sub 1 milliseconds. So maybe in the next symmetrical controller from ZD, we can surely reach that number, right, ZD? But either way, job well done for the controller in this price bracket. So I've been abusing this controller in Forza Horizon 6 for about 2.5 weeks now. So I'm not gonna LARP my experience just like as if I opened the controller fresh from its box. So when I got the Super Legend and I held it, I don't really think I've held this kind of coating or finish on a controller before. It's pretty much a matte finish, but it has some grip to it. Like if you rub your own skin, and you compare it to the faceplate, it'll pretty much feel the same. uh, I'm not sure either, but it feels kind of nice. So this kind of finish won't attract fingerprints for sure, as you can see here. But if you're the type to sweat a little bit when holding the controller, it will leave some sweat marks. And I feel like the colors of the gloss orange, as we can see here on the D-pad, and the logo, which is technically a sticker. I don't know if you guys can see it. And then the bumpers, they're pretty nice. They stand out really nicely as accent colors. And then on the back of the controller, they went with a stippled dot design, as you can see here. If I focus the light on it a little bit, goes all the way. It has the basic grip to it, and it works just fine. They provide ample amount of grip, and you don't really have to worry about any rubber grips yellowing out if they were lighter or white in color, or you can risk the glue on the rubber grips wearing off and peeling over time. But if you guys need more grip tapes or grip stickers on these, you can also get them later down the line from ZD themselves, from the previous Super Legend, as they already have a template for it. And the Super Legend also uses the brand new K-Silver JS13pro Joysticks, widely known to be the gold standard of TMR sticks available on the market at this point in time. And I can attest to this. I've tried other TMR modules like the JS16 TMRs, the DS13 Maxes, the RJ13s, which come with the Ultimate Legend. And the JS13 Pros, I feel, are still the best in accuracy and smoothness. I think ZD just made this the tension on these a tinge tighter compared to the stock JS13 Pro modules on the market at about 55 grams of force. But they're still very nice to use. Yeah. So the main reason why ZD is still my favorite controller brand is because of the tuning on these joysticks. So while traditional square input is the raw mode for most first-party controllers, a lot of third parties use software to lock the outer dead zone to a degree, and can sometimes feel slightly nervous or cause very, very slight misinputs when you're playing at the top levels of your game. But what ZD does is that they have what we call a true raw mode, where inputs actually feel more one-to-one with the output, similar to a first-party controller. And I'm just gonna connect the controller just to demonstrate for you guys to see. So when we are using the circular algorithm, which is 0 peripheral dead zone or outer dead zone in the joystick settings, you won't get a 0% circularity error rate in the gamepad tester website. And that's actually fine. It's actually more precise than when you have 0% circular stick algorithms to slow down your joystick's diagonal movements. And to know whether or not your controller has this true raw mode, all you have to do is just to test for circularity at any gamepad tester website, and then just spin your sticks once, like this. And then to actually show whether if it has the true raw mode, all you have to do is just to press down on your joysticks, and then you just rotate again on the edges of your controller. And yeah, you'll see it change just a bit, not by too much. Same goes to if you have a raw mode already set, and then you press the joysticks, it will show a little bit more error percentage, and that's actually fine. These extra error percentages don't really affect your gameplay at all, even if you were to press down your controller and then you were to move it around. But instead, it serves as an indicator that the controller's joysticks isn't hard kept by software. So I wish more companies look into adding the true raw mode into their controllers, now that the JS13 Pros are like the gold standard in linearity, rivaling that to an Alps potentiometer joystick. Also, just quickly speaking about these thumbstick grips, they're okay, they're usable. But ZD also released new and grippier thumbstick options for you to buy as add-ons if you like. I did a whole video review on them and their variants, so feel free to take a look. Also, if you guys are ever wondering if you wanted to get the extra thumbstick replacement grips from ZD, then I think the whites would go the best with the pink version, especially of the Super Legend Excellence. So if I can just fit them in really quickly. So it will look something like this, which I think is pretty nice. The only gripe I have about this, which is pretty much a nitpick, is so on the Ultimate Legend, so you see how the D-pad has this Z shape like this, and that the thumbsticks actually correspond accordingly. But on the Super Legend, it's facing the other way around, probably due to how the joysticks are being soldered in, and there's nothing much you can do about this. But it's just nitpicking from me, to be honest, at this point. So it looks something like this. With the lights, it'll look like that. Right? But if you wanted to get the black, just because you're scared of the whites of yellowing over time, you can also get a black. But I think it's a little bit out of place. Oh, can I fit it in? Yep. It'll just look something like this. Just for reference. And then other stuff that you can get from ZD Store would be, if you're looking for a controller case, then having the O Plus Excellence case actually fits well with the Super Legend. Because initially when I got this case for the Ultimate Legend, the bumpers were actually a little bit too big. So it would be constantly pressing on the bumpers when you fit it into this case, which I'll show you guys in a bit. But because of how much smaller the Super Legend Excellence is, it doesn't have this issue. So it can fit well without pressing any of the buttons on the edges over here. And then there's also a zipper compartment if you want to keep your cables and your other thumbsticks, or you can also put your thumbsticks over here. Right? And voila, that's pretty much it. And you can just zip it and bring it everywhere you go. Pretty sturdy. And this is what I meant when I were to put in the Ultimate Legend. As you can see, it's a bit of a tighter fit. Now that I have it in, you can see that the bumpers actually don't really have much space to breathe when I put in the controller. Or like this one, see now it's jammed. But yeah, if you're ever wanting to get a controller case for your Super Legend, the O Plus Excellence case fits it pretty well. Pretty nice. Speaking about the triggers, they feel quite good. They have a decent amount of trigger travel in them. Not a lot, but not too little. I feel like this is just right. And they also have a little tension to them, which is always welcome because I only play racing games. So I went on 5-hour straight gaming sessions before, racing on full trigger travel, and never really felt tired once. I still wish manufacturers get closer to the inner spring tensions of a Xbox Series controller. And I think safe to say, the trigger springs are very well made and they do not squeak at all. They're also pretty well built compared to the Ultimate Legend, where the triggers, they don't wiggle at all. even if you were to, press down and wiggle them. But as you can see here on the Ultimate Legend that I've been using for quite a lot and abused as well, it wiggles just a tiny bit. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's even more obvious when you press it down and you have to wiggle side by side. So yeah, something that they can have a look before releasing their updated Ultimate Legend variants in the future. And these also come with Microswitch trigger stops, as we can see over here. You just switch them just like that, and then you get your Microswitch triggers. They have a little travel in them, which is great. But something to keep in mind is actually the shape of the triggers. As you can see here, it's a little curved up more than usual. So for me, it's perfect because compared to the Ultimate Legend, which is a little on the flatter side, just here for comparison, as you can see, it is a little more curved up, more drastically, I would say. And it's actually perfect for me because the curved trigger and also the stippled dots that we can see over here in combination actually helps to keep my hand within the trigger and not actually slip off, which I realize is a thing that happens for me on the Ultimate Legend. And then in addition to the stippled dots that we see over here, which aren't that protruding and actually dig into your skin if you hold it too tight. So this is fine, but I realize whenever you are holding the trigger with the trigger stops and in claw, where you hold it like this, your middle finger on the trigger and then you have this on your index finger on the bumper, it's actually a very short amount of space if you want to, keep your middle finger in the pocket. You'll pretty much have to have your middle finger on the very tip of the trigger and then your index finger on the bumper. Otherwise, it will be very cramped. For reference, my hands are around the 19 centimeter from the tip of my finger to the end of my palm. So this is something for you guys to consider before getting this controller. But for me, it's perfect enough because I use the analog triggers, which I can also use them with pretty much no issues because the analog trigger goes down anyways to make space. But for fighting game users and first-person shooters where the microswitch triggers are more commonly used, and if you have big hands, then this is something to rethink about because the Super Legend is a tinge size smaller than the Ultimate Legend. Also, the trigger lock switches are far better for swapping compared to the Ultimate Legend, where on there it is quite recessed inwards to the point where you need to put your finger and nail inside to swap it out on the Ultimate Legend. But now you just have to use your finger and swipe, and just like that. Very easy. Because at the moment, it's a little more protruding, and it is also chamfered very well, so it's not a edge and it cuts into your skin whenever you hold your controller in this space. But I can assure you, they kind of don't if you're on the analog trigger. It's even more inside, so you don't really have to worry about it if you were to playing racing games. So yeah. And speaking about microswitches, the Super Legend also features a full microswitch controller for all the main buttons. So not the tactile buttons, but microswitch, like the Ultimate Legend. They're all on the lighter actuation side of things. So the ABXY buttons have close to no pre-travel in them. And so do all the other 4 remappable buttons that we can see, which are 2 on the top here, and then 2 more at the back. So this is me holding the controller, with my 19cm hands, with the middle finger on the back buttons. It's pretty nice, pretty stable. Or if you're a claw-based user and you want to have your middle fingers on the triggers, the ring finger that presses the back buttons will be slightly a little bit higher, but I guess you just have to adapt to it. But I also have to point out that my unit's MR button has slightly of a airy feel when I were to lightly tap on it. But then if I were to tap on the ML button on the back, it's more stable. But generally, it won't really affect your gameplay at all, as it is a microswitch on the back, and it works normally when pressed. So whenever I were to use it, it's actually just pretty normal. I just tend to be super nitpicky on tapping stuff due to me tapping and fixing my keyboard's rattling stabilizers on the back. And I've also opened the controller up just to check the inner construction of the back buttons, and they both seem to be identical to each other, so I can't really pinpoint out what's wrong that's causing the floating sound and feel to happen. I will tinker around and mod this controller with some Krytox lube, since there is some squeak from the plastic to plastic contacts on the back buttons, especially if you were to use it and when you were to press the buttons, you can feel a slight squeak to them, and that's normal. If you guys are keen on watching the process of me modding the Super Legend Excellence, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I can make it as well. I have actually documented this once for the Ultimate Legend in a Reddit post that I'll link in the description, so feel free to check it out there as well. And regarding the ergonomics of this controller, it is actually marketed for the 16 to 20cm hand size, but I feel like although it's a little bit smaller compared to the Ultimate Legend, the palm grips of the controller is still a little bit on the fatter side. But I actually have a very small issue here under the Ultimate Legend. So whenever I were to abuse the controller during long playing sessions, I always end up getting a sore spot on my left ring finger over here, because there is a sharp drop of the controller. As you can see, there's an edge over here. I don't know which angle you guys can see it, but maybe it's somewhere here where the light hits the controller. There is an edge over here, and in combination with the grips of this controller, which is a little bit on the harder side, and due to me holding the controller really hard or death gripping, I always end up getting a sore spot. But as you can see here, the drop got reduced a bit from a sharp corner into more of a curve. So that's nice. And maybe in the future, ZD can round the edges a little bit more on the bottom here instead of a sharp drop. So it'll alleviate potential soreness or skin chuffing from the grips, since on the Ultimate Legend it is a stiff rubber. But that's just my opinion. And the D-pad certainly has a meatier feel compared to the Ultimate Legend, which I have a neutral to happy preference for. And the construction of this D-pad on the Super Legend Excellence has a membrane pad layer on top of the Microswitch, and the squeaky sounds are gone compared to the Ultimate Legend, which is a nice upgrade in my opinion. Was the squeakiness that it came with the controller, and it required me to, you know, pluck open the controller, but I didn't really have the balls to do it. But there is a plastic to plastic squeak that you guys can feel on the Ultimate Legend. I only use the D-pad for menu browsing and the occasional friendly gaming sessions in Street Fighter 6 with my friends, which is nowhere competitive for me and just for fun. So it works well, is all I can say, right? And I always liked ZD's 8-way D-pad construction that I feel like doesn't accidentally cause diagonals to trigger in menus or in game. So that's always a plus for me. And speaking about the bumpers, they feel a little special. The microswitches and the bumper construction that ZD used for the Super Legend makes me feel like I am popping bubble wraps or air pockets on each press. uh, it's good and a new bumper feeling for sure. And I think this is what makes the Super Legend stand out compared to other controllers that I've been using so far. And these might be my new fidget toy compared to the back buttons. Maybe after I finish modding the back buttons, they'll go back to me pressing them more. But whenever there are intervals during racing, these are the buttons that I usually press. It's nice to press. And also not to mention that the start and select button and the mode button, they're all a little heavier of a tactile switch and not micro switches. And here is a soundtrack for the Super Legend Excellence. And speaking about the battery of the Super Legend Excellence, it has a 1200 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty huge since its polling rate is kept at around 900 to 1000 hertz polling rate on a dongle. But I haven't really tested on how long this will last since I am permanently gaming on the wire anyway, as that is where this ZD controller shines best. It should last a while before needing a recharge, and there is also a charging dock for the Super Legend coming soon. So you guys will have to just stay tuned for that one if you ever plan on getting one. So for now, you guys will have to charge it wired into your PC. Also, speaking about being wired in, the cable that comes with the Super Legend Excellence is very well made, in my opinion, especially the head. Just to show you guys how secure it is, I'll just plug it in. And as you guys can see, I'm just shaking it. It's very well made. It's not dropping connection at all. Very well done. Great. But also just a heads up, if you already own both Super Legend Excellence and Ultimate Legend controllers, the heads on the connectors are different from each other. And especially if you were to use the braided cable of the Ultimate Legend, it won't fit into the USB-C connection over here. And as you can see, the head over here, it's a little more fat, so it won't fit into the... It's too big for the hole of the Super Legend Excellence. So something to keep in mind if you still want to use the braided cable from your Ultimate Legend. And moving on, let's talk about vibrations, my favorite topic for controllers. So the Super Legend Excellence has 4 vibration motors, 2 motors in the triggers and 2 in the grips. And there is no HD rumble for Switch users this time around, unfortunately. And I've mainly used this controller in Forza Horizon 6. And although it doesn't really have native trigger vibrations from Xbox themselves, as this is not a Xbox licensed controller, I think ZD tuned it pretty darn well. And I would say it's about 80% accuracy. They also use the same trigger motors as the ones used in the Ultimate Legend, as we can see here. Of course, compared to the tuning from ZD and their motors, I think Xbox still has the best trigger vibration feel due to how thick their ERM DC motors are compared to the teeny tiny ones that ZD and other third-party controller manufacturers use. But I think it's supposedly due to the licensing issues with Microsoft and Impulse trigger haptics. But then to think again, the 8000 hertz polling rate that you're getting and the JS13pro TMR sticks and the super low stick latency, I personally would consider this as a trade-off worth having. So since the Super Legend Excellence isn't a Xbox licensed controller, there are bound to be differences in the haptics of third-party controllers. So for example, the Super Legends triggers in Forza Horizon now only features a one-stage vibration instead of the Xbox controllers having two or more stage vibrations in the triggers. Which means for the brakes, you don't get the initial stage 1 tickle whenever you press it lightly, before a stage 2 rumble, before you lock up your tires. But the Super Legend instead will have a cleaner approach to this, which is foregoing completely the stage 1 tickle and will start vibrating whenever your tires are going to lock up. Meanwhile, for the right trigger, it will start vibrating once you are losing traction on your tires when accelerating. So for example, during corner exits, if your rear tires are about to lose grip from accelerating too hard, too early, it will already start vibrating, indicating that you are not ready to press the accelerator yet. And from this vibration feedback, I was easily able to tell when the tires are ready to have more throttle input once I exit the corner, as the right trigger will eventually stop vibrating once it has enough traction on the road. So this might throw new users off initially, especially coming from Xbox licensed controllers and their vibrations, as ZD takes a different approach to the vibrations in Forza Horizon, which I think is acceptable, since in Forza Horizon 6, the braking in this game is complete dog water compared to the likes of Forza Horizon 5 and Forza Motorsport, since even the slightest braking input while turning will lock up your tires, hence making it ideal to have ABS or anti-brake system turned on in pretty much all the classes, so you don't lock your tires as easily. This alone makes the Super Legend a viable controller, since having ABS turned on allows you to fully press your left trigger 100% and let the game stagger your braking for you. But if you really want to go the extra mile limit testing with the Super Legend while having ABS on, so you brake harder when it's not vibrating and let go when it is. So it's simple and clean, and letting the ABS be your safety net so you don't lock your tires up. But in dirt races, however, you can't really feel any in-depth tire traction on the right gas trigger, since the vibrations on the Super Legends are zeros and ones or on and off. So it'll just vibrate with a constant output. While on Xbox licensed controllers, you get a stage 1 trigger tickle when your car is allowed to accelerate harder while sliding, in addition to a stage 2 rumble when your car isn't ready for accelerating while sliding, so that is when you lift off just a bit. But while racing on the road, the Super Legends 1s and 0s type vibration works perfectly in game, since you are meant to be gripped up at all times unless you slide out too much, and by then the grip rumble motors will notify you when you end up spinning out instead, even if you were to drive rear wheel drive cars or even power builds. So the grip rumble motors are nice in the Super Legend, but the triggers where it is most important, isn't it on dirt? So if you're purely a road racing merchant, the Super Legend is a very good controller. And to be fair, traction feedback vibration matters a lot less for dirt than on the road. But there is a bug here, however, where if I only want the trigger vibrations on the Super Legend Excellence and want to turn off the grip vibrations completely, if I were to put them to 0 on the grip vibrations, the trigger vibrations will turn off as well. Regardless if it's only one side at 0 or both sides at 0. So the lowest value will have to be 1 on both sides. This goes for both the Super Legend as well as the Ultimate Legend vibrations. So I hope that ZD addresses this bug soon. And also for a heads up, the trigger vibrations, they don't work in all the games on the stereo resonance mode. For example, in Forza Horizon 5 and 6, they're working fine. But then in Forza Motorsport, the left trigger has completely zero brake feedback, but the right trigger feedback is good. And as of now, there isn't really a list of games from ZD where they tuned their stereo resonance mode to work in. So I can't really give feedback on other games in the vibration department, apart from Forza Horizon 5, Horizon 6, and Forza Motorsport at the moment. To customize your Super Legend Excellence controller, you can pick either the mobile app version or the PC app to customize your controller. Back a couple months, I'd usually recommend using the mobile app as it is straight to the point and more bug-free compared to the PC app. But now the PC app has been optimized enough where it doesn't disconnect you just by alt-tabbing away from the ZD PC app, which was pretty much my main gripe, as the whole app, when it got released, felt like a university student's final year project. And do note that you do need to be on version 1.13 on the Super Legend Excellence controller to use the PC app and mobile app to their full capabilities, mainly for controller to app compatibility, and also some features only available to the PC app. Also, some disclaimer for you guys that the PC app can only be used when your controller is wired in to your PC, and you can't really access it through a dongle connection, as if you're on dongle, you have to use the mobile app on Bluetooth. Not sure why it's designed like this, but come on, ZD, we can do better. And also a heads up for mobile app users, please pick the correct Super Legend Excellence option here, where the controller is white in color featuring a red D-pad. This black Super Legend is the older variant and is completely different from the Excellence model, as it will not connect you to the app at all. And looking at the ZD app over here, once connected, you will be redirected to the Super Legend Excellence controller, where the ZD app has support for the Ultimate Legend and their custom DS4 motherboard. But for now, we're just going to look at the Super Legend Excellence settings. So straight away, you will be greeted with the homepage, where it shows your battery, your current controller version. And then for config, you can pick either profile 1, profile 2, 3, or 4. And then for the sleep mode, it's only for dongle settings. I wish that they also added a sleep mode for being wired in as well. Because especially if you're on 8000 hertz polling rate, you would like the controller to have a fixed sleep mode so that it doesn't constantly draw power from your computer. But let's only hope that ZD can add this soon. But yeah, they have 3 options here, which is never sleep, sleep after 15 minutes, and after an hour. And over here, we will see a option for update plan, but these two, they don't really do anything. Firmware update just basically brings you to a Mandarin website that has a download versions for their firmware updates. But you can find firmware updates in ZD's global website, or even in the Discord server that you join from the welcome card in your box. And then there's a button here for if you want to restore the controller to factory settings instead of poking a needle hole over here, just in case if your controller breaks itself during update. And then for this, there's an introduction, which is pretty much useless. And over here, you have a in-app calibration tool where you can calibrate your joysticks or your triggers, or if you're on gyroscope, then you can just follow the steps. But also, as a disclaimer, if you want to be manually calibrating your controller and without using the app, which is what I recommend people to do anyways. So if you're wired in and you attempt to do the calibration mode, which is A, D-pad up, and the mode button, you won't actually save any of your calibration at all regarding your triggers or your joystick calibration methods. Don't ask how I know, but instead you have to be unplugged from your controller, press your home button, and your calibration configurations will only save if you were to do from this method. I don't know why it is but it is what it is. And I hope that ZD will fix this in the future, or maybe it is just by design. We'll never know. And moving on to the joystick option, we have multiple joystick curves for you to choose from. Yes, instant, balanced, delayed, high performance. These are some really techy names. This one is a aggressive but smooth curve. I think this is for Apex Legend players. And this custom option just lets you drag your points to however you see fit. And yeah, it auto saves by itself, so you don't really have to worry about pressing a save button anymore, like the mobile app. But for me, I just leave it at default because it works well for me in game. And then here you have your center date zone that you can just manually type in any number you want. It auto saves itself, but I like to leave mine at 0 just for how smooth the joysticks are. And then for the outer date zone, you can use 0, but if you want a raw mode that is similar to Xbox and DualSense controllers, you can use 4, as putting a outer date zone of 4 will lead you to having a error rate of about 8%. But if you were to use a outer date zone of 0, you will get a error rate of about 1 to 2%. And that's fine, as I've mentioned earlier regarding the true raw mode. And this actually is your anti-date zone. So if you were to change the starting point on where your curve begins, you'll see it rising up accordingly. And then you can also invert the axis on the Y and X axis. Same goes for the right stick. And then for more settings, you can also swap your left joystick and your D-pad, just in case if you want to mimic controller inputs as such. So it works on all 8 axes, and then your joysticks will be your D-pad instead. Same for the right joystick and your D-pad, or your left and right joysticks. And this option right here is actually your step size for your sticks, which is actually your bitrate settings. You can increase by a custom amount of number until you find a suitable bitrate for your games. And moving on to motion mapping, which is actually your gyroscope. So there are options to map it to your left or right joystick. So you can pick a trigger key to trigger the gyroscope to turn on. You can pick one. And you can also have it either always on, or you want to hold to activate it, or you want to click to activate it. And then you can also pick the sensitivity on how sensitive you want your gyroscope to be. But to be honest, if you were to get the Super Legend Excellence, you wouldn't buy it because of the gyroscope. I think the gyroscope options on this controller isn't really up to standard of what other companies with actual gyroscope mapping can provide you. But use this as a menu browsing tool and actually use the joysticks to play in game. And for the button mapping, here you can choose whether if you want rapid fire. I think these ones they aren't fixed properly. As you can see, it actually says rapid fire setting, but the UI isn't long enough, and it's set for only the Mandarin version. As you can see, something like this. So if you want to set to rapid fire or turbo, you have your options over here for every single button on the controller. And as well as for macro button settings, you can also set macros or just remapping of your main buttons onto the macro buttons, which are the two over here and then two more at the back. So I will quickly demonstrate how the macro back button settings work for if you want to set a macro or you want to remap a button. So when setting a macro, all you can do is just to press start recording. And then let's say I want these button combos, right? And then I just click stop recording. So on single click, let's say I just click save for now. So on single click and off loop mode, I just trigger it once and it should go like this, right? It'll just complete one loop. But if I were to press loop mode on, it will keep on looping by itself as long as you press it once as a on-off switch, right? But if I were to change it to hold, it will only work when I hold it. And if I were to change it to hold off, as you can see, it only works once. It doesn't loop. It just starts from the start. So that's pretty much how it works. If you want to remap a button, all you have to do is just to click plus for your RK button or any of the 4 buttons in that matter. You can pick whether if you want one of your controller's buttons or if you want to remap one of your keyboard buttons onto your controller. That's pretty much it. Same goes to the settings on the bottom. And for the vibration settings, you can play with how strong you want your vibrations to be, either by intervals of 1, or you can just drag your slider. And as well as I said, let's say if you want your trigger motors to work and not your grip motors, the minimum value that you can have is 1 before your vibration just completely doesn't work. And also, in native trigger vibration option is what the controller comes with. You will only get vibrations in the grips, but not in the triggers. So stereo resonance is where the ZD's tuning for a very specific amount of games that the triggers will actually work in game. And for the trigger vibration option is how much the triggers vibrate depending on how deep you were to press your triggers. As such. But in Forza Horizon 6, where you want the trigger vibrations, you just have to pick stereo resonance and you're pretty much good to go. So previously, as it says over here, and maybe in your mobile app even, for native trigger vibrations, they are only available via Bluetooth connection. For my case, regarding the Bluetooth polling rate, I'll just have to go with the amount that John Punch got because my PC's motherboard doesn't have Bluetooth built in, and my external Bluetooth dongle only gives me about 70 Hz of polling rate, which I believe doesn't accurately show what the Super Legend Excellence is capable of. But back to the native trigger vibrations being only available via Bluetooth mode, I think this is a straight up cap because I didn't actually get real native Xbox trigger vibrations, but instead it was whatever ZD tuned stereo resonance provides in game, especially in Forza Horizon 6. So if you want any type of trigger vibration in Forza Horizon, just enable this stereo resonance option in the ZD app, and you can completely forego the native trigger vibration option. Or if you want to play wirelessly, just use the dongle that comes with the Super Legend. Don't even bother looking at Bluetooth on this controller other than to connect it to your mobile app. And moving on to the trigger option, there is a trigger range for you to pick from. So putting it at 25 will mean your trigger will only work after pressing 25%. Or if you want your trigger to end earlier, you can just drag this over here, or a custom number if you will, so that your trigger actuates at 100% at 80% press, for example. But for racing games, especially the brakes on how easily they lock up in Forza Horizon, you can put it at a max of 100. And then for your right trigger, I recommend to put it at 97 so that you will have a very, very small dead zone at the end so that your acceleration is always at 100%. And then for your trigger modes, there's a long trigger and then there's hair trigger. So putting it on short trigger will just let you activate a full press on this amount of press, and then as you can see, the rest doesn't really do anything. But then if you want a long trigger, it will correspond as a normal analog trigger. And speaking about trigger dead zones, this controller is actually pretty crisp. Like even the very slightest press, you will get a very small amount. And then at the heaviest press, there isn't any dead zone at all. And moving on to the lighting option, this is where having the PC app has an advantage over the mobile app. So you can pick a set amount of preset colors that the mobile app doesn't have. And then you can also pick a custom brightness setting for all the lights available on the controller. So I picked orange at the moment because on camera it looks the best in my opinion. But when using it, I always actually have the left light and right light turned off because when I'm holding the controller, I won't be looking at it anyway, and it actually saves some power and some battery, especially if you're on dongle. And then for my left stick, I actually put it at like pink, and then I put it at about 40 maybe. I feel like this is the nicest, in my opinion. But you can't actually see it on camera, but it's actually much better in real life. Or if you want to have completely RGB lights, then you can just click flow, which actually is pretty nice in real life again, and can't really capture it on camera. Or maybe if I can dim the brightness down a little bit, maybe this is better as a reference to how the RGB light shines, which is pretty cool. Good job by ZD. But if you want static colors, always remember to click always on. I'm not sure why this is not static, but if you click a color and you click flow, it will still be flow. So you just change it to static. Same with the right option. There we go. And for the report rate, which is your polling rate option, you can pick either you want by USB connection, your dongle, or by Bluetooth. And you can pick correspondingly depending on how well your computer is built for connections like these. And that's pretty much it for the PC app. Right, all in all, for about 70 US dollars or about 299 yuan, the Super Legend Excellence 8K I think is a fantastic performance controller for its price bracket. And regardless if it's your first time trying out a modern ZD controller, or if you want a marginally smaller controller after owning an Ultimate Legend, this controller won't ever be a bad pick. And if you have the budget to try one of ZD's newer controllers, I can highly recommend them, despite having some flaws like their unfinished ZD customization app in the translation department. Otherwise, the controller is pretty well built and does not inherit the quality control issues that its fatter sibling has on the joysticks, as they are now soldered in on the Super Legend Excellence. And that's all from me today. And thank you all for watching, and see you guys in the next controller review. Hey, bye!